Hi, my question for Army on Gossip Girl. Who was the biggest diva on set?
Biggest diva on set of Gossip Girl.
Let me just say, that was a tough show to film. I didn't end up actually filming all of the episodes I was supposed to.
Literally, you said, get me out of this.
It was also like, get him out of here.
Whose love interest were you?
Blake Lively's love interest.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay, well
Sounds
then.
like she was the problem.
It sure does, Chelsea.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Stand. She doesn't want her husband to take the stand. She doesn't want Taylor Swift to take the stand, nor do they want to take the stand. So if they came to you and just said, we will call this a massive misunderstanding, can we just drop it? Would you entertain it? Curious.
I mean, he was called a sexual predator, or are they saying he's still a sexual predator, but it's a misunderstanding?
You know,
Right.
You are going to depose Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Taylor Swift, who else?
Hollywood is in full meltdown mode as celebs come together to expose Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds for allegedly scamming their way to the top. And trust me, these allegations are spiraling out of control. A growing number of voices from the Deadpool and Wolverine camps are stepping up, calling out Ryan Reynolds for his iron-fisted control on set. Cast and crew members claim he steamrolled entire projects, hijacking creative decisions with a toxic "my way or the highway" attitude.
The woman who wrote the It Ends With Us screenplay, Christy Hall, said she turned in her script prior to the writer's strike. Then she rejoined production to give feedback during the editing process. She noticed that there were differences in some of the dialogue that she just assumed were improvisations. It wasn't until the premiere on August 6th that she found out, along with everybody else, that it was Ryan who had penned that dialogue. I need to know when this editing process was, because if it was during or right after the writer's strike, it means it would have been written during the writer's strike. I can understand why Christy Hall wouldn't sound the alarm if the version of the film that she saw the new dialogue in, if she just assumed it was improv. But then on the red carpet, to find out along with everybody else, he actually wrote those bits in and potentially during the writer's strike. It's giving scab. Or am I misunderstanding? Someone help me do the math.
And the backlash? Brutal. Fans are dragging him online, calling his behavior shameless, a full-on betrayal of Hollywood trust. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's past is coming back to haunt her, and the receipts are stacking up. Back in 2018, she was only supposed to play the lead in The Husband's Secret, but somehow she magically ended up with an executive producer credit. And it doesn't stop there. Small creators, some dating back to 2014, are finally speaking out, claiming she exploited their designs, used their work, and then ghosted them like they never existed. At this point, the whole cute Hollywood power couple act? Dead, buried, gone. Wouldn't be surprised if Netflix turned this into a true crime documentary. And if you thought this was messy, just wait. Their never-ending feud with Justin Baldoni? That was just the appetizer. Because while Blake and Ryan have been out here selling a wholesome, picture-perfect image, they've allegedly been snatching ideas, making fake promises, and playing manipulative mind games like some toxic duo straight out of a psychological thriller. That funny husband, classy wife reputation they worked so hard to build, completely shattered.
I don't think the husband of the A- list actress knows exactly what went down on the set and just how much extra, unnecessary kissing and other activity there was. He will find out in Discovery. This is just alleged, obviously, but I think that we can use our context clues and assume it's about Ryan Reynolds not knowing about what happened between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively on the set of It Ends With Us. If this is true, okay, if this is getting really messy. I just need one crew member that was there on set every single day to come out and give us the tea. I don't think anyone will, but I want them to.
We're talking receipts from creatives, industry insiders, and even their own so-called friends. And guess what? They're all painting the same ugly picture. There is a lot to unpack here, so grab your snacks, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and let's dive into how Hollywood's nicest couple might actually be the pettiest scammers in the game. And now, they've finally been exposed for it. But here's where it gets wild. Blake's messy track record didn't just start recently. Oh no, her highlight reel of bad decisions stretches way back. Let's take it all the way back to 2014. Yeah, back when some of y'all were still watching Paw Patrol. That's when Blake decided to launch Preserve, her painfully out-of-touch lifestyle brand that had no real identity except for one thing: selling ridiculously overpriced candles, awkwardly rustic home goods, and random handmade stuff that literally no one asked for. One article tried to make sense of what exactly Preserve even was, and after much effort, the conclusion? It was just a brand. That's it. A hipster knick-knack shop for millennials that was way too expensive and crashed spectacularly. And when Preserve flopped in 2015, did Blake admit it was a complete disaster?
Ooh, Preserve. Blake Lively's short-lived digital ode to the South. He was going for Martha Stewart meets the Pioneer Woman with like a splash of goop, but what we got was Paula Deen. Paula Deen if she was into $70 artisanal salad tongs. Anywho, unfortunately for Blakey, there wasn't much of a market for a lifestyle blog romanticizing the antebellum South. Called Preserve. What are we trying to preserve here, Blake? I didn't see her selling any jams. For many, there's something really troubling about a woman born and raised in Los Angeles who is enamored with the antebellum South. And to be clear, antebellum means before the war, the Civil War. And she thought that shit was so chic that she and Ryan had to get married on a plantation. Since then, to be fair, they have both apologized for the plantation wedding and invested heavily in organizations that support communities of color. You can make a post on that if you like, but TLDR, if you got married on a plantation, I hope you're haunted by the slaves whose graves you essentially danced on. Toodaloo.
Nope. She swore up and down that it was just ahead of its time and launched too early. But the receipts? They tell a very different story. Word on the street? Blake wasn't just selling overpriced candles and rustic home goods. She was allegedly stealing from small creators to do it. Sources claim she was ordering samples under fake names, copying designs bar for bar, and then ghosting the original artists like they didn't even exist. Cold. By October 9th, Blake, then 28 years old, was forced to shut Preserve down for good. The site barely lasted a year after launching in July 2014, and when Vogue asked her about it, she tried to spin the whole failure, saying she didn't want to continue with something that she and her team were not proud of. Her excuse? We launched the site before it was ready, and it never caught up to its original mission. It's not making a difference in people's lives, whether superficially or in a meaningful way.
Here is a new blind item that is allegedly about Blake Lively's new hair care line, Blake Brown, failing immensely. Apparently, a hair care line and a movie about DV is not a great marketing twofer. The new line of the A-list actress is bombing. That makes her like 0 for her last 6 when it comes to establishing a brand. And again, this is allegedly Blake Lively and her new hair care brand, Blake Brown, and it is comparing her past brands, Betty Buzz, a line of non-alcoholic drink mixers, Betty Booze, a line of alcoholic canned cocktails, and Preserve and Gifting, kindness and gifting advice. And the related headline reads, "The Blake Lively backlash was a long time coming." The drama surrounding It Ends With Us seemed to be some of the biggest entertainment news this week, with Blake Lively catching a lot of heat for her conduct during the press release for the film and some problematic past actions.
But just when you thought Blake's sticky fingers were only snatching from Etsy shops, plot twist, there's another scandal, and this one, it involves scripts. This next part is one of those Hollywood whispers that never quite made it to the big gossip pages, so take it with a pinch of salt. But if it's true, it's messy. Apparently, back in 2017, Blake was set to star in the CBS Films thriller, The Husband's Secret. And that's when drama hit. An indie screenwriter popped up online, claiming that her script had been floating around Hollywood for years, only to suddenly show up reworked into the exact movie Blake was now leading. And yet, mainstream outlets like Deadline, Variety, and The Hollywood Reporter wouldn't touch it. Back then, questioning A-listers was practically forbidden territory, which explains why this story is almost non-existent. But here's where things get juicy. This isn't far-fetched at all. In fact, an old interview clip just resurfaced where Blake straight up brags about hijacking projects from directors and producers like it's cute. And just to double check, yep, Blake wasn't just the lead in The Husband's Secret. She also somehow managed to slap the title of executive producer on the project. Convenient, right? And if you know anything about Hollywood, you already know that half these celebs don't actually do the work. They just throw executive producer on their resume because it looks impressive and helps boost their power in the industry. Even without a smoking gun, this fits right into the same shady pattern people have been calling out for years. Blake stays eating off of other people's plates. And if there's one place where this behavior was completely exposed, it was on the set of Gossip Girl. And her first victim, Penn Badgley. The way Blake treated him on the Gossip Girl set? Straight up ruthless. Before Penn even had a chance to settle in, Blake was already working behind the scenes, running her mouth and convincing everyone to ice him out. And for what? Not because he did anything wrong, but simply because she didn't like him. Imagine that. Weeks went by before the cast finally realized that Penn was actually cool, but by then, the damage was already done. And the real gag? After all that behind-the-scenes drama, Blake and Penn ended up dating for 3 years, only for Blake to dump him and run straight into Ryan Reynolds' arms like nothing ever happened. The plot twists just keep coming. But here's where things get extra messy. After Blake married Ryan Reynolds and suddenly had Hollywood producers worshiping the ground she walked on, guess what happened? Penn Badgley's career took a major nosedive. Industry insiders say Penn got quietly blacklisted, and for what reason? Just because Blake wasn't cool with him anymore. Sound familiar? It should, because that's exactly what happened with Justin Baldoni and the It Ends With Us cast. After Justin leaked those spicy messages from Blake, people started connecting the dots. And now, the theory is that Blake caught feelings for Baldoni and flipped out when he didn't reciprocate. And just like what happened on the Gossip Girl set, Blake's It Ends With Us co-stars, Brandon Sklenar, Chris Glennon, and even author Colleen Hoover, have all been distancing themselves from her lately.
Are you Team Blake or Team Justin? He said, I don't speak English, Gail.
I'm team It Ends With Us.
It Ends With Us star Brandon Sklenar playing Switzerland when it comes to the drama between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni.
It's unfortunate that things get taken away from what the ethos of that thing is, and it gets convoluted, and I just want to remind people of why that thing exists in the first place.
Heartless.
Lily Bloom. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
She has a really amazing ability to make people feel really good.
Allegedly, they finally saw the full picture and realized that Blake had played them too. Oh, and if you missed it, I already did a full breakdown on how Penn Badgley called Blake out for tanking his career. So, if you haven't seen that yet, go watch it. But now, let's talk about Leighton Meester. Because if you think Penn had it rough, just wait until you hear how Blake did her dirty. These two pretended to be besties on screen, but behind the scenes, it was giving oil and water. Total opposites. And definitely not friends. And one thing about Blake? She will always pull the gender card. According to Gossip Girl's executive producer, Joshua Safran, Blake and Leighton were friends, but not friendly, which, in Hollywood code, means they couldn't stand each other. And if you've ever watched their awkward press interviews, the tension was right there for everyone to see. And if you've ever sat through their awkward press interviews, the tension between Blake and Leighton? Unmistakable. But wait. There's more. Because then we have Armie Hammer, who played Gabriel on Gossip Girl. And while he didn't go full tell-all, he subtly, but very clearly, hinted that Blake was the reason he left the show early. And honestly, who is even surprised at this point? And speaking of Blake's greatest diva moments, we absolutely cannot skip over her beef with Anna Kendrick, because that was a whole circus. During the press tour for A Simple Favor, the tension between Blake and Anna was so thick, you could slice through it with a butter knife. One of the film's producers even came out and said that Blake was impossible to work with. And in classic Blake fashion, instead of owning up to it, she pointed fingers. accusing Anna of stealing the spotlight during promotions. And the general reaction? Girl, please. And if you want the full breakdown on how Anna Kendrick completely ended Blake, I already did a deep dive, so go check that out. But for now, just know this. These are only a handful of the receipts proving that Blake's nasty attitude has been out in the open for years. And trust me, this isn't even the part where it gets wild. Because while Blake's skeletons are spilling all over the floor, let's not forget, Ryan Reynolds' closet is just as messy. From sneaky Hollywood moves to shady business deals, the receipts are out. And guess what? Some of your fave celebs who have been holding this in for years are finally spilling. Heads up, this is BAD. By the time we're done here, you might never look at Ryan Reynolds the same way again. First up, let's talk about Tim Miller, the OG director behind Deadpool, who straight up walked away from the franchise because of Ryan Reynolds. Now, if you always thought Ryan was just some goofy, lovable guy, think again, because Tim has a very different story to tell. Apparently, once Deadpool became a massive hit, Ryan took over completely, treating the franchise like it was his personal baby, and everyone else just had to sit back and go along with it. Word on the street? Ryan wanted total control, scripts, scenes, even the entire vibe of the film. And the second Tim started pushing back, Ryan basically shut him down, hitting him with a my way or the highway attitude. Tim eventually had enough and packed his bags, later telling Mental Health magazine, "I don't mind having a debate, but if I can't win, I don't want to play. And I don't think you can negotiate every creative decision." Translation? Ryan Reynolds was running the whole show, no questions asked. And the real kicker? Even Tim admitted that since Ryan was the face of the franchise, there was nothing left to fight for. Because once Ryan decided he was in charge, that was the end of the conversation. When a Hollywood heavyweight like Ryan Reynolds is blocking every single move, what else can you do? Now tell me, does this still sound like your wholesome, fun-loving Deadpool? Tim Miller wasn't the only one fed up with Ryan's antics. Because TJ Miller, who played Weasel in Deadpool, had his own nightmare experience. And unlike Tim, he didn't just quietly dip. If you know TJ Miller, you already know this man has a mouth on him, so he made sure that everyone knew exactly why he walked away from Deadpool. And when I say this man was willing to pass up a fat paycheck just to avoid Ryan Reynolds, yeah, it was that deep. According to TJ, Ryan treated him like trash on set, and not in a ha-ha, we're just joking kind of way. This was straight-up humiliation, no punchline attached. And the worst part? TJ swears he never even knew why Ryan had it out for him, especially since, let's be real, he was just a side character. But after thinking it through, TJ came to a harsh realization. This was all about Ryan's ego. He needed everyone to know who the biggest star in the room was, and apparently that meant putting others down just to make himself look bigger. And if you thought Ryan only had issues with the guys on set, think again. Because his leading lady caught serious smoke too. Morena Baccarin, who plays Vanessa, the literal love interest in Deadpool, went from being front and center in the first movie to practically invisible in the sequel. And if you're wondering why, well, let's just say the pattern speaks for itself. Turns out, Morena Baccarin's disappearance from Deadpool 2 wasn't just a creative choice. Word on the street is that her real-life fallout with Ryan Reynolds had everything to do with it. And get this, Morena wasn't just cut from the movie spotlight, she was completely iced out in real life too. What caused the fallout? Nobody's dropping solid receipts yet. But the rumors are swirling. Some say it was over her shrinking role, while others claim she pushed back on some of Ryan's jokes that didn't sit right with her. Either way, challenging Ryan in his own franchise seems to be the fastest way to get yourself ghosted. And the proof? When Deadpool and Wolverine started trending, Morena was nowhere to be found in the promo wave. Not a single mention. And at the premiere? Morena stood solo, while the rest of the cast was all smiles around Ryan. Yeah, that silence was loud. Honestly, this whole thing is giving serious Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni "it ends with us" energy. Because when a power couple runs the show, you either play along or get played out.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds just dared to show their face in public for the first time in 4 months at SNL 50 and made a joke about their court case with Justin Baldoni on live national television in front of the whole room. You will not believe what they said. Here's them on the red carpet. Ryan looks like guilt is eating him alive. Blake looks wonderful. She even had time to put on some of her floral. I wonder if she put someone in the basement at this event too, allegedly. So Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, who were hosting the event, were doing a Q&A with all the celebrities in the audience, and for some reason, Ryan Reynolds thinks people want him there. And they were like, "Oh, I'm shocked to see you here, Ryan Reynolds," and he makes a joke like, "Wait, what have you heard? What do you mean?"
Who else? Who else has a question?
I have a question.
Oh, hey, Ryan Reynolds.
Hi.
Hey. Ryan Reynolds, how's it going?
Great. Why? What have you heard? Yeah, okay.
Anya Taylor-Joy's like, "What the fuck?" This man's reaction is amazing. He's like, "What are you doing here?" This also comes in light of Justin Baldoni's first public appearance since the court case, but he kept it classy and didn't make any jokes about this court case with very sensitive, touchy subjects in it because he has class. And this is just so surprising to me because Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds just asked the judge for an extension on Blake's amended lawsuit to respond to Justin's lawsuit because he completely destroyed her in it, and they denied them that extension. So they have to turn that lawsuit in on Tuesday, and they're spending their Sunday night at SNL 50. Like, don't you got some homework to do, Blake? And I'll definitely update you when her amended lawsuit comes out and she tries to win public opinion back. And so you stay in the know for all updates on this court case. Make sure to hit follow on all apps in case of a ban, because in Patty we trust.
And Ryan's harsh treatment? It didn't stop with his Deadpool co-stars and crew. Even reality TV stars got a taste of it. And trust me, they did not hold back. The Jersey Shore crew was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, and when asked, "Who's the rudest celeb you've ever met?" most guests would laugh it off, dodge the question, or pretend Hollywood is one big happy family. But not this time. At first, Sammy Sweetheart tried to play it cute, dodging the question, keeping it vague. But before she could even blink, Dina went full unfiltered and dropped the name Ryan Reynolds like it was nothing. And she tried to soften the blow, throwing in a, "He wasn't great to us, but I still love Ryan and Blake." But let's be real. If she had to say that, she already said too much. Meanwhile, Sammy scrambled to save face, suggesting that maybe Ryan was just having a bad day. But let's call it what it is. Ryan's nice guy image might work on social media, but clearly not everyone is buying it. Because when the cameras stop rolling, it looks like no one is immune to the real Ryan Reynolds. Not even rising A-listers. Some actors are so traumatized by their experiences with him that they won't even name drop. They just tell horror stories and let us connect the dots. Case in point, Rebecca Ferguson. Rebecca opened up about a nightmare co-star who literally made her life hell on set. And while she never said the name, the way she described it, pure chaos. This actor was so deep in their insecurities that they couldn't even get their lines right, but instead of owning their mess, they took it all out on Rebecca. We're talking full-on screaming matches, humiliating her in front of the whole crew, and calling her a trash actor like it was casual conversation. Rebecca admitted she walked off set in tears more than once. But here's the plot twist. But Rebecca Ferguson, she didn't just take the abuse, she clapped back. One day, she had enough and straight up told this mystery actor to get off her set. And to make it even more iconic, she threw in a brutal line, saying she'd rather act with a tennis ball than deal with their dusty C-list attitude. And the way she reclaimed her power? Legendary. After her story blew up, a bunch of actors, including The Rock himself, rushed to show her support.
Rebecca Ferguson just starred in Dune 2, which has so far made $178 million, but not all of her roles are so easy, and for one role she was screamed at. And Rebecca Ferguson recently went viral telling a story of an actor or actress who went up on set screaming at her and said she's going to be fired from the role. Many people assumed it was her longtime Mission Impossible co-star Tom Cruise, but she confirmed it wasn't him. And then people jumped to assume it was Hugh Jackman, who she's done multiple movies with, but she confirmed it wasn't him, saying it wasn't anybody she's done more than one movie with. Because so many people are trying to figure out who screamed at her, other former co-stars of her such as Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt have released statements saying it wasn't them. Now, many people think it's Jake Gyllenhaal because of recent issues he's had where a $30 million movie was canceled due to erratic behavior he had on set. Jake Gyllenhaal, for a recent movie filmed in Iceland, made the crew sleep in their cars because he was afraid of getting COVID in the hotel, but at the same time stripped naked in front of everybody to swim in the ocean. Gyllenhaal made them redo the script a month before filming, which did cause issues. Also, many believe it was Hugh Grant, who she worked with years ago and is known to be difficult on set. But no one's guilty until she says who, and with that, I'm Charles Pearl. Subscribe to learn something.
Even some of her past co-stars hit her up like, "Girl, we knew you were going through it, but this? Wild." Now, Rebecca kept the mystery name under wraps, but she made one thing clear. It wasn't Tom Cruise or Hugh Jackman. And while she never mentioned Ryan Reynolds, let's just say, people still have him on their suspect list based on his disturbing track record. But Rebecca isn't the only one who seems to have quietly distanced herself from Ryan. Even his so-called Hollywood besties are keeping their distance. And the biggest switch-up? Jake Gyllenhaal. Remember when Jake and Ryan were joined at the hip after starring in Life together? They were giving full bromance vibes. Interviews, red carpets, inside jokes, the whole package. And then, it all just fizzled out. And here's the thing. Jake is notoriously tight-lipped when it comes to drama. So the fact that he's actively ignoring Ryan's existence? Yeah, something in the Hollywood water is definitely off. But Rebecca Ferguson? She didn't just take the abuse, she clapped back. One day, she had enough and straight up told this mystery actor to get off her set. And to make it even more iconic, she threw in a brutal line, saying she'd rather act with a tennis ball than deal with their dusty C-list attitude. And the way she reclaimed her power? Legendary. After her story blew up, a bunch of actors, including The Rock himself, rushed to show her support. Even some of her past co-stars hit her up like, "Girl, we knew you were going through it, but this? Wild!" Now, Rebecca kept the mystery name under wraps, but she made one thing clear. It wasn't Tom Cruise or Hugh Jackman. And while she never mentioned Ryan Reynolds, let's just say, people still have him on their suspect list based on his disturbing track record. But Rebecca isn't the only one who seems to have quietly distanced herself from Ryan. Even his so-called Hollywood besties are keeping their distance. And the biggest switch-up? Jake Gyllenhaal. Remember when Jake and Ryan were joined at the hip after starring in Life together? They were giving full bromance vibes, interviews, red carpets, inside jokes, the whole package. And then it all just fizzled out. And here's the thing. Jake is notoriously tight-lipped when it comes to drama. So the fact that he's actively ignoring Ryan's existence? Yeah, something in the Hollywood water is definitely off. And trust me, the awkward vibes between Ryan and Jake? Just the tip of the iceberg. Because right now, Ryan Reynolds' whole Hollywood resume is one giant red flag. Directors and producers straight up shook to work with him. By now, y'all already know. Word on the street is that Ryan has a habit of bulldozing creative boundaries, turning every project into the Ryan Reynolds show, whether anyone asked for it or not. And if you thought just his co-stars had issues, think again. Even Quentin Tarantino, a man who has never been shy about sharing his opinions, took a direct shot at Ryan's Netflix empire, and he did not hold back. Here's what Tarantino had to say. I mean, and I'm not picking on anybody, but apparently, for Netflix, Ryan Reynolds has made $50 million on this movie, $50 million on that movie, and $50 million on the next movie for them. I don't know what any of those movies are. I've never seen them. Have you? I haven't ever talked to Ryan Reynolds' agent, but his agent is like, well, it costs $50 million. Well, good for him that he's making so much money, but those movies don't exist in the zeitgeist. It's almost like they don't even exist. Ouch! But wait, it gets worse. Because when Ryan tried to reboot Home Alone with a stoner twist that literally nobody asked for, he got hit with major backlash. His version? A weed-infused disaster called Stoned Alone. And the original Home Alone director, Chris Columbus, was not having it. Chris called the idea straight up disrespectful, an insult to the art of cinema, and told Ryan to sit down and just rewatch the original instead. And honestly, where is the lie? And it's not just directors and co-stars who are calling Ryan out. Fellow actors aren't holding back either. When someone compared Gerard Butler's Movie Gamer to Ryan's Free Guy, Gerard didn't even try to be polite. His response? I don't watch Ryan Reynolds movies. That was brutal. And Ryan's messy behavior? It didn't just stay on set. It followed him straight into his love life. Just ask Scarlett Johansson. Their marriage just so happened to crumble right when Scarlett's career started skyrocketing, landing her massive Marvel roles in Iron Man 2 and The Avengers. And on the rare occasions that Scarlett has hinted at what went wrong, she's made it clear. There will always be a more successful person in a marriage, but Ryan never wanted to be the least successful one. That says a lot. I've already covered the full scoop on how cheating, jealousy, and insecurity led to Ryan and Scarlett's divorce. So if you missed that, be sure to check it out. But let's be real, this insecure label isn't just coming from one place. It keeps following Ryan, from his co-stars to his directors to his exes. At some point, you have to wonder, if everyone is saying the same thing, can they all be lying? So at this point, it's looking really clear. Blake and Ryan might give off the perfect couple image on the surface, but behind the scenes, the math isn't mathing. From shady career moves to relationship mess, the cracks are showing, and Hollywood is no longer letting it slide. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so drop a comment below. And don't forget to check out how Penn Badgley called out Blake for ruining his career and how Anna Kendrick ended Blake for good. Click on one and let's keep this conversation going. Like, share, and subscribe for more. See you there.